characteristics of autism really differ greatly depending on the person who's diagnosed. When we look at the spectrum, it can be a varied number of things, but the ones we generally see and the ones that you'll find in the diagnosis are the lack of social communication. So it's not just communication in and of itself, the ability to talk or the ability to sign, but rather the ability to communicate socially. Now, that can be a little tricky because just talking vocally is communicating socially, because that's the reason we communicate. But it would include things like picking up on other people's cues when they're disinterested, or understanding when a person is excited by what you're saying, and things like that. So it's a huge kind of umbrella of different things that we're looking at when we talk about social communication. And that's where we see kind of the biggest variance, is that we see plenty of individuals who cannot speak, cannot functionally communicate. And then we see people who have full vocabularies, but when it comes to really interacting, talking about relationships and things like that, that's where they start to suffer. Then the other characteristics we look at are things like interaction ability, their social skills. So are they able to interact with other people? Do they play next to other kids but not actually with them? Do they avoid people altogether? And then up to as much as going on dates and living with a roommate and getting along with professors and teachers and things like that. Jobs, being able to have a job, interview for a job. All of those things would fall under the social skills. So we see deficits in both of those things, the communication as well as the social skills. And then kind of the third big piece is what they kind of refer to as restrictive, repetitive behaviors or beliefs, where they have, it could be something like a stimming behavior, where they're flapping their hands or looking at things out of the corner of their eye, things like that. We would consider that to be under that category. But then we also see things like really strong interests that aren't necessarily shared by other people. So they like Thomas the Tank Engine from the time that they're 2 years old until for the rest of their life, or they like Barney, or things like that, or just one thing like maps or lamps. They have this real strong kind of fascination with that, and they don't really move on as a quote-unquote typical child would. So there's a lot of things that sort of fall under that as well, or they have routines that are kind of stereotypical or repetitive that they're kind of doing that don't really have a basis in something that would make sense to an onlooker. So those are the ones that we really look at: that social communication piece, the social skills, and then those restricted repetitive behaviors.